Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Now, I speak a lot about getting your training programming in check because honestly, it's probably the biggest missing link to why people do not look the way that they want to look and not have the hardness that they want to have because it's like this goal body that's out there is well trained, it has shape, it has muscle. That is what we are in this for. Like, that's why if aside from health, fitness, and anything else that comes with it, most of us have this aesthetic goal. We want to look like we lift. We want to have some leanness and shape to us. We don't just want to be small and skinny and soft, but we also don't want to be like over fat or like just squishy. We want shape. And the more that we can invest into our muscle bucks, the better it's going to be for us long term when we're 50, 60, 70, and onwards. Because not only is that our metabolism, but that's going to help us keep some form of mobility, functionality, fitness, et cetera, et cetera. But there is still like, this is why we need to go through this process of building muscle, of understanding this whole process of physique development, because physique development isn't just an aesthetic thing. The process of it completely changes you. It's a mindset shift because to be able to train like you mean it, I hesitate sometimes to say train like an athlete because I'm sure many of you don't feel like you're an athlete because you don't do sporty things. But if you're lifting weights, that in itself, you can consider yourself an athlete there. It's just that you're not a competitive athlete. So I am talking about the most underrated aspect of all of this, not just in terms of how it fuels our training, but I don't feel like carbs are understood as well as they should be. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made earlier on in my journey is that I was just loading up on salads, veggies, protein. And when in doubt, it was just more protein and overdoing protein and overdoing more protein. And I have this conversation regularly with one of my clients as well, because it's like she'll get into the habit of it and then she'll fall off it a bit. And you can tell when she's fell off it because there's like she doesn't feel as energized, she's not as satisfied through the day, she craves more things, she wants to nibble on more things, and then it's almost like I have to bring in bread again. I'm like, well, what's stopping you? And then she just brings in bread again, and all of a sudden her appetite's really happy and she's got energy that actually sustains her through the day. And that's the thing. And I see this mistake just literally everywhere, especially when I open up friggin' Facebook groups filled with people who aren't really in the actual lifting world that most of you will probably would be, because you're probably following at least a couple of good people, but they're always answering questions with carnivore did wonders for me, fasting did wonders for me. Just avoid white carbs, just avoid these carbs, that carbs. And that's the thing. Like that's why this podcast, that's why I know you. That's why my followers, I know that you are already smart in all of this. You're consistent and you're deeply committed to becoming the best you can be, which is why I'm trying to do the very best that I can. Although that will never bridge the gap of not actually having your own coach help you through the things. But you train hard, you lift heavy, and try to progress. You track your protein and you dial in what you can with your macros, but your body is still not responding the way that you want. And most of the time it's okay, well, are your macros where they should be for you? Are you actually fueling enough? And this comes off the back of my last solo podcast, where our maintenance is actually a range. We could feel like we're maintaining around a particular number, and it's like, well, I'm maintaining here. If I eat any more, then isn't that just going to make me gain weight? And it's like, well, maybe, but also maybe not. We can test to see where it goes. And if we only look at the scale or look at what happens to our bodies in the short term, we can never actually see what will be on the other side of just pushing it for a couple of months. And that's the same with when you're actually in suppressed calories, not say 2,200. Maybe your maintenance could be like a little bit higher. That's a different kind of, let's see where your calories are versus the 1,500 people who think that that's their doom and gloom, and anything more just. So if you don't have a lot of calories to play with, that makes this even more difficult because you do want your protein in there. And I do like really high protein intakes, but not at the expense of carbs, because carbs are your fuel and protein doesn't really get used all that well. And carbs aren't just fuel, they're sustained energy, they're recovery. They are what help make your body a little like harder. Not only does it help buffer cortisol, but it fills up your muscles because that's where most of the water is pulled into. And if you're fueling better and you're training harder and you have more energy through the day, then there's more benefits to carbs there. So that's what this episode is all about. It's this missing piece and how to actually fuel in a way that makes your training do something, and why trying to maybe increase your carbs in the past triggered some form of fear, or your gut just got all puffy and watery and you just felt bigger, and why it didn't work for you before. In any case, whether it's just increasing your calories or increasing your carbs, I'm going to address that because I know that that was my fear, because my physique just got softer, not stronger. I just felt more puffy, not bloated. And so many other women would say that they feel like they're allergic or intolerant to carbs. That I never said, but I did say the prior ones. And you were not alone. Like, it's very, very common. And especially when eating clean is your only way to go, that can actually have you feeling a little bit more like, oh my God, my gut. Because now that's a lot of like fiber and voluminous foods that can actually have an issue as well, just as much as lacking fiber. But I'm not going to touch on that because I think people could do more with eating a lot more fruit and veggies. But you also need a lot more complex carbs, because while protein builds the house, it's like, what's the whole point having the bricks there if you don't have the workers and the tools to do anything? It's like you can have all the bricks you want, but there's going to be no house built if you haven't yet got workers to put the bricks into place. It's like it'll work for a little bit because you can do some of the work yourself, but then you're going to get tired and you're going to want to hire a team. And you don't even know what you're doing because you're not a construction worker. You didn't go and learn how to do this shit. So you can like slab together a botchy job and get part of the way, like newbie. That's where the newbie phases come in. That's where like the initial muscle gains come in. And that's why people usually stay stuck doing what they used to do, it like what they used to. I've said this in nearly all of my solo podcasts. Like, everything works until it doesn't, which is why we stay married to those things. Because it's like, well, I know this works because I see results. It's like, well, yeah, you see results, but have you actually progressed since you saw the initial results to the degree of the work that you're putting in? And that's where carbs come in, because where people go wrong is when they increase their carbs or when they increase their food, they think that that is going to be the magic itself. Versus, what is it that the food and the carbs are helping you do? Now, I'm not talking about getting out of your suppressed maintenance, because that is a completely different topic. Your body's going to be using that for the fact that it needs it to optimize its functions. A lot of people have so many suppressed functions in that suppressed maintenance state. Like, your body stops wasting energy. Your body starts to hoard it all. Like, you won't expend as much heat. You won't expend as much, because it, like, when you're making ATP, which is the energy currency for whatever it is that you do, you don't just make ATP, it lets off heat and it wastes energy in that ATP making process. But as you get into that deficit, it hoards more and more calories and more energy. Now, that is not going to happen. That's not going to be your metabolic adaptation in a normal fat loss phase. But if you're going to stay chronically dieted down and you have zero strategy to any of that, that is when shit hits the fan, because all of your hormones are going to downregulate with it too. So back the way we were with the carbs. What is that? What are those carbs helping you do? They're going to be helping you fuel more, move more, have more energy. They're going to help you push more in your performance. And that isn't going to happen straight away. That is going to be a continual, gradual process. But if we're going to also chuck in more training, that gets rid of the process. Like, that gets rid of the purpose, because the goal isn't to eat more to do more training. It's to eat more to get more quality training, to then recover from that quality training, because then we are going to progress over time. And that's the second place where people go wrong. You don't need a huge surplus to build muscle. And you don't really need to go into a surplus at all at first. You just need to build your maintenance up. And once you've built your maintenance up, that's when you can then go into a slight surplus, because that is what we need to do. The other mistake that a lot of women make isn't on the eating more side, it's eating more, but only slightly. So then you don't really see the changes. You don't really get the benefits that you want through your body. But then because we've been so indoctrinated into this whole, if I'm not feeling smaller and empty and hungry, and if I'm not in this like dieted state, then something feels uncomfortable, then I'm puffy, I'm full. And as you start to train harder because you are eating slightly more, just not enough to get into a adequate building phase, which you are building at first because you're eating more than before. So that's already increasing your performance. So you're technically building muscle if your training is right. But if you're only going to teeter inside of the middle of maintenance, like that metabolic middle, you're no longer slashing calories, you're no longer overtraining. You're in a place where you can see results, just not in this like high maintenance, low surplus. I like to call it aggressive maintenance into a slight surplus. So then if you still use the same tactics of I'm going to diet every summer, I'm going to slash my calories now because I feel like I've built enough muscle and it's only been like 4 months, 6 months, even a year, that isn't going to get you anywhere. Not unless you are someone who has a lot of weight to lose. Because if you have a lot of weight to lose and you're treating this like a let's just not focus on dieting and let's build myself up to a place where I can get into a diet, that's a different podcast. And I've already done one on that, and I can easily do more if you want one. But this is if you're like already in this middle zone where you do have body fat, but not excessively. You do have body fat, but you don't have a lot of muscle. And that is the thing that is going to elevate everything upwards. Like average, where you've lost and gained and lost and gained. And it's just like if what you have done in the past hasn't worked, you're probably in a zone, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to recycle old approaches because we already know that that didn't work. And if you're getting into your 50s, then this is even more important for you, because the more muscle that we can actually build, the better your potential later. Because regardless of how it feels in your body right now, I will tell you, fat loss is way easier, even at your age, even over 50. Fat loss is so much easier. It's just we need to work with your hormones. And by that, I mean the symptoms that you get from perimenopause. That's the only reason that it feels hard, because your recovery is so much less. So what you need to do is be like a delicate flower, but not a delicate flower because you still want to train like a beast. And that's the point. It just means that's the little period of time where you will feel yourself gaining a little bit more belly fat, getting a little bit more puffiness and water and all that kind of stuff. But that will all go away if you stay consistent in all you're doing. And if you're before your 50s, build up that metabolic and muscle capacity, because that's just a normal flux of holding a lot more stress and water. That's what your hormone fluctuations do. You will feel a lot more puffier, and it's something that you can't just get rid of. Something that you just have to deal with for a couple of years, or however many years that transition is. Most of that is water weight. Some of it might be a little bit of belly fat too, but that will go away after. If you don't force it and make it worse, it will go away. Because if you're someone who isn't going to, it depends on how much you can actually stick to something. The reason a lot of women past that age don't put themselves into grueling fat loss phases anymore, it's because they realize that they just love feeling strong and healthy and good, but that is still possible for you. And you also start to realize that life is so much better with a lot more food, and you don't need to be thick skin lean, just lean enough. Most of the time when you see women not being able to get lean, it's like, well, can I even get lean? It's the emotional eating, it's the stress eating, it's the hormonal crap that makes them eat more than they used to, and they didn't stay on top of everything because your motivation's also low. Your sleep is not recovering. I don't know why I'm going to the menopause stuff, because that's what I'm going to be bringing in on the next podcast, but I'm just trying to say that this still applies to you. This still applies to you. Carbs are the thing that fuel your workouts, your recovery, and your day. And they're also going to be the thing that helps before you sleep. That's why I introduced this podcast with carbs aren't just for performance. Like, carbs are everything. They're going to make you feel better. You're not going to feel as exhausted because you're going to be recovering better. You're not going to feel like you're craving as many foods. Your appetite isn't going to be shit. And yes, complex carbs are going to help you with your sleep. I know many times that when you slash your carbs and you're not eating as many carbs in the second half of the day, you can have pretty crappy sleep because of that. And I never talk about alcohol in this podcast, but I would assume that most of you already know that. It is wildly misunderstood because you cannot build a physique on protein alone. All the protein and macro hacks are not enough to build what you want. Carbs are the fuel, they're the engine. They fill up your muscle bellies with glycogen. They drive the performance that drives your progress. Without enough carbs, your body does not have enough of the resources to do something with the effort that you're putting in or to actually do anything with the excess blocks. Like, it's there for a reason. And I know I get really hard on myself when I know I haven't been fueling my performance because my potential is capped right now because my recovery isn't the best that it can be. Because hello, I'm human. And my schedule is completely shit fire because hello, I'm human. As soon as I let go of my morning training, I've been as consistent as ever in still going to the gym, but not as consistent as ever in adapting the rest of my routine to it now. And hello, I'm human, but I am maximizing what I can and optimizing what I can, and it's okay. I am still eating a shit ton of carbs. I'm still eating a shit ton of calories. It's just not performance nutrition the way that I teach it. And that's what usually makes me feel like shit. Because it's like I teach it this way and I'm not doing it this way because everything's chaos, but that's okay. It's just if you're not eating at least 200 grams of carbs, you're not even following sports nutrition recommendations. Like sports nutrition recommendations, most women should be eating at least 200 grams of carbs. Unless you're in a fat loss phase, that might need a little bit of tweaking. But outside of a fat loss phase, this isn't bulking. 200 grams of carbs isn't even scraping the range. It's just the starting point of enough carbs. Usually 250 to 300 is the typical range. And then up to 350. Like that's what it typically is. I would say 4 to 5 grams per leanish body weight. I would typically say body weight, but if you have a lot of body fat, then I would not go off your body weight. I try to guesstimate what to go off, which I typically go off about 60 to 65 kilos for the majority of women who are 65 to 70 kilos. I just scrape off that 5 kilos, depending, because we don't want it for the actual lean body mass. It's just like adjusted for excess body fat, if there's excess body fat. That's the bare maintenance for a woman who trains 3 to 4 times a week. Yes, 3 to 4 times a week. 2,000 calories, 200 grams of carbs is bare minimum maintenance for a woman who trains 3 to 4 times a week and lives a full life because it's the activity outside of the gym. And I'm guessing if you're listening to my podcast, you're someone who cares about your health and your fitness and being the best you can be. So you would be getting at least 8,000 steps, if not 10,000. But yes, it's just, I see most women eating only half of what they should be eating with carbs, like 150 carbs. It's like, no, we need to bump them up to 200 to 300. It's just really difficult at first when we still have some fat to lose, when that's when we might teeter around the 200 gram mark. Less if you have excess body fat to lose because you have a lot of stored energy on your body. So this is where it's just like all the nuance comes in. And I hope that kind of covers that and how beneficial it can be. Because also at the same time, if you're training really hard, you don't want to be on your ass the rest of the day because that impacts your metabolism. So if we can get you to a place where you're recovering really well and you still have enough energy to go through the day, that is what we want. And we've been conditioned to fear the very thing that our body not only needs the most, but our performance relies on, our physique relies on. And then the first thing we end up cutting is carbs. And then the first thing we end up struggling with and not being able to stay consistent to our diet because of the fact that we just cut out something that our body's craving. And then if our body isn't recovering, we're going to start craving more things. Because when we are depleted, we have like a blood glucose drop, and then that's when our cravings increase. And there are some carbs that also help with serotonin and dopamine. So without the serotonin and dopamine, that's when we start to crave more things. And that's typically why a lot of people go to food for comfort eating, because it helps with the neurotransmitters. That aside, I talked about mistakes that people make that kind of is why we're afraid of it all, because eating more didn't work for us last time. It just made us fluffy or bloated or fat, or our bellies just, and we just started feeling really big. If you have anxiety around food or around carbs, that is going to disrupt your gut. That is going to lead to inflammation in the gut. That's going to lead to puffiness and water retention, because that is stress. And that's what stress does. It impacts your digestion. It impacts your ability to absorb things in your gut. This isn't going to make you fat. It's just stress and digestive issues. But it can become a chronic issue, because if you're not absorbing the nutrients you need, that's when it becomes we need to actually talk about this. Fearing food is usually why we end up bloated with things and feel like we are intolerant to carbs, or we're not used to feeling full or hydrated from glycogen and water. We're not used to actually feeling this full feeling. So we're like, oh my God, this is a bad thing. It's like, no, that's what carbs are meant to do. Eating more only works if your training and your lifestyle also give your body a reason to use it. I don't just want to say make yourself like use the food. You need to earn your food thing. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about past the stage that you're actually eating enough. That's why I started with the 200 grams of carbs, 2,000 calories. That's bare minimum maintenance for most people listening to this podcast. For some of you, if you're a smaller woman, I might do a podcast on that very soon, but maybe your maintenance is around the 800 to 1800 to 1900 mark. So there's that as well. But once we're at this part and we start to eat more carbs, we start to eat more calories, we need to have our training in the right direction. We need to fuel with direction. And that's another reason it doesn't work for a lot of women. They typically save a lot of their food for nighttime, or a lot of their food for the weekends, not actually food for the purpose it's for, which is to fuel your training and for recovery, but also to fuel your day. If you train at nighttime, it's not like, okay, let's fast and then fast and then feast, because you're active during the day and you want to be active during the day. And I remember when I was literally maintaining on 1,300 calories and my body adapted that hard, even though I was doing all the things, my metabolism wasn't broken, but because I was hardly eating through the day, I was ravenous. My belly was a mess because I was trying to like eat all of these just calorie-free bullshit, trying to fill myself up back then. I was tired. I would go to the gym and then I would flip on my bed. That stuff impacts you, and that is what carbs help with. Like, carbs are just, they do so much for you. And that's why I get annoyed at myself when I know that I could be optimizing my carbs more. And that's what I wish so many of you could come to the phase of, where it's not like getting annoyed at yourself because you ate too many, but getting annoyed at yourself because you know that you're not fueling your best potential. And that's what beats me up every single time. The only thing that beats me up is that, because it's like, I can't complain about the progress I'm not getting in strength or physique if I'm not actually doing the things. So I need to actually figure out how to do the things. Otherwise, don't complain. And that is what I tell myself, which is why I'm like, I wish more people could just like get this dialogue into their head. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not seeing the results, then what is it? Like, what is it that I am not doing right now? What can I improve? It's not a matter of doing more things. It's a matter of what am I doing right now that's holding me back? Figure out what's holding you back first. Because fueling without direction is like filling up a car to go nowhere and it just sits there. Like, you want to actually drive somewhere. That's why you fueled up the car. Do something with the stuff in the right way. And you want to actually have a direction to go to, which is, let's build muscle. Let's have a plan on paper for your program that has purpose, that excites you. But I don't expect you to have that purpose straight away. That comes with, I really don't. Like, if you haven't got one right now, I don't blame you either, because you've never actually felt freaking good in the gym. Like, you've never felt alive and energized and, oh my God, I'm well fueled. Like that kind of stuff. Once you enter the gym with that in your mind, everything changes, and then you start to want to chase more things. That puffy feeling, whenever you feel that puffiness, that's got to do with a lack of recovery, overtraining, just feeling different, eating more for the first time in your life. But most of the time, that puffy feeling is from some mismatch in your inputs as in what you're doing, your inputs and your ability to drain the bucket. So the inputs into the stress bucket, and then your ability to drain it, or your ability to at least manage it and carry it. It's most of the time that we need to rewire this narrative with the mindset of Performance first, physique follows. Performance first, physique follows. Better energy means you'll lift heavier, means you'll feel better, means you'll want to show up more, means you'll want to have more things to chase, means you're going to put in more effort because now you're excited. And better recovery means you not only train with more intensity, but you're able to come back at it again with the same intensity. And you just have something that keeps you in it. You need to be in it to win it. And I think that's something I did want to talk about before as well, but that kind of lost my train of thought, ADHD things. And it's late at night and my ADHD meds have worn off. But I do feel like this part is really important because if we can understand how all of this integrates, not only will you start to see your results take off, but you will feel a lot more in control of your results because now you have something to work towards. That's what I was going to say. I'm thinking of doing a podcast on the actual nature of training progress and what usually holds people back with their training progress when they feel like things aren't working anymore or when numbers aren't moving or what happens when you keep regressing on some moves and then progressing and that sort of thing. But this isn't a podcast just about eating more carbs. It's about knowing where, when, why, and understanding just what carbs can do for you outside of the performance realm, but for performance, because everything outside of the performance realm is going to help your performance. And like I went on the tangent of perimenopause and age, if you're feeling better throughout the day and you're fueling yourself and you're not depriving yourself, you're going to keep up that recovery capacity. And that's typically where a lot of women go wrong in perimenopause. They try to solve the solution by forcing the body harder, by forcing an already burnt out body that is under recovered, that is struggling through perimenopause, that's going through tough shit, trying to fix it through another diet, through more training strategies, versus actually giving it what it needs, recovery. And it's the same thing with you, with a crazy life, with whatever it is. I do have a guide on how to eat to perform. If you do want that, just shoot me a message on Instagram, TransformXRuby. But otherwise, there is nothing wrong with your body. It's not that your body doesn't respond. It's not that you're intolerant to carbs or there's something unique about you that just blows up or gets puffy. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of women that say the same things. Sometimes you might see them complain about it on Facebook forums if you're in there. Other times you might not even know because people do not share the behind the scenes. So yes, it is not something to do with you and your unique body not responding the same way as someone else's, but you do need to do something, do many things, do something actually, do something on repetition and repeat and repeat and repeat to get better at it and to build trust in your body again. Because most of the time, it's not that we don't trust a process per se, it's that we don't think it will work for us because that's where I was. I did not think it would work for me, but I knew that that coach that I was getting was phenomenal. I just didn't think that my body was going to respond because I thought I fucked mine up. But no, you haven't fucked yours up. This is the roadmap that puts everything together, or I should say playbook, because that's what I called this thing. My whole solo thing, I have a whole playlist. I put them all together on that. If you want that as well, message me. But this is your playbook. So DM me, perform or eat to perform, and I'll send you the guide. And if you do want your own personal map laid out for your life, your training, your goals, to stop second guessing and to actually stop you sabotaging your own self, because that's typically what stops us. We sabotage ourselves. Then reach out to me and let me know that you want to improve whatever it is, or just let me know your goals, because I know that that little the little reach out, we usually wait for the guys to message us first on the dating apps. Like I know that little bit's awkward, so I know that it's awkward in the initial dating phase, but we'll get past the initial dating phase and we'll become very close. Okay, that's freaky. I love you all, and I'll talk to you later.